The Happy Prince.
High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes he had the bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt.
He looks just like an angel,
said the charity children as they came out of the cathedral, in their bright scarlet cloaks and their clean white pinafores.
How do you know?
Said the mathematical master.
You have never seen one.
But we have, in our dreams,
answered the children, and the mathematical master frowned and looked very severe, for he did not approve of children dreaming. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind, for some reasons. Now he wanted to fly to warm areas to protect itself from the harsh winters. All day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city.
Where shall I put up?
He said.
I hope the town has made preparations.
Then he saw the statue on the tall column.
I will put up there,
he cried.
It is a fine position, with plenty of fresh air.
So he alighted just between the feet of the Happy Prince. But just as he was putting his head under his wing to sleep, a large drop of water fell on him.
What a curious thing!
He cried.
There is not a single cloud in the sky, the stars are quite clear and bright, and yet it is raining.
Then another drop fell and another. He looked up and saw the eyes of Happy Prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks.
Who are you?
He said.
I am the Happy Prince.
Why are you weeping then?
Asked the swallow.
You have quite drenched me.
When I was alive and had a human heart,
answered the statue,
I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace of Sansoki, where sorrow is not allowed to enter. In the daytime, I played with my companions in the garden, and in the evening I led the dance in the great hall. I never cared to ask what lays beyond my palace. My courtiers called me the Happy Prince, and happy indeed I was, if pleasure be happiness. So I lived, and so I died. And now that I am dead, they have set me up here so high, that I can see all the ugliness and all the misery of my city. And though my heart is made of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep. Far away,
continued the statue in a low musical voice.
Far away in a little street, there is a poor house. One of the windows is open, and through it, I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse, red hands, all pricked by the needle, for she is a seamstress. Her son is ill, he has a fever, and they need money to buy medicine. Little swallow, will you stay with me for one night and bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt?
The Happy Prince looked so sad that the little swallow was sorry.
It is very cold here,
he said.
But I will stay with you for one night and be your messenger.
So the swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword, and flew away with it in his beak over the roofs of the town. When he came to the poor house and looked in, the boy was tossing feverishly on his bed, and the mother had fallen asleep. He hopped and laid the great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. Then the swallow flew back to the Happy Prince, and told him what he had done.
Tonight I go to Egypt,
said the swallow. When the moon rose he flew back to the Happy Prince.
Little swallow,
said the prince,
will you not stay with me one night longer? Far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. He's trying to finish a play for the director of the theatre, but he is too cold to write any more. There is no fire in the grate, and hunger has made him faint.
I will wait with you one night longer,
said the swallow, who really had a good heart.
Shall I take him another ruby?
My eyes are made of rare sapphires, which were brought out of India all 1,000 years ago. Pluck out one of them and take it to him. He will sell it to the jeweler, buy food and firewood, and finish his play.
Dear Prince,
said the swallow,
I cannot do that.
and he began to weep.
Little swallow,
Said the prince.
do as I command you.
So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye, and flew away to the student's garret. The young man had his head buried in his hands, so he did not hear the flutter of the bird's wings. And when he looked up, he found the beautiful sapphire lying on the withered violets.
I am beginning to be appreciated.
He cried,
This is from some great admirer. Now I can finish my play.
and he looked quite happy. The next day, when the moon rose, he flew back to the happy prince.
I am come to bid you goodbye.
He cried,
Little swallow,
said the prince.
will you not stay with me one night longer?
It is winter,
Answered the swallow.
and the chill snow will soon be here. In Egypt, the sun is warm on the green palm trees, and the crocodiles lie in the mud and look lazily about them. Dear Prince, I must leave now.
In the square below,
Said the happy prince.
there stands a little match girl. She has let her matches fall in the gutter, and they are all spoiled. Her father will beat her if she does not bring home some money. And she's crying. She has no shoes or stockings, and her little head is bare. Pluck out my other eye, and give it to her, and her father will not beat her.
I will stay with you one night longer,
Said the swallow.
but I cannot. Pluck out your eye. You would be quite blind then.
Little swallow,
Said the prince.
do as I command you.
So he plucked out the prince's other eye and darted down with it. He swooped past the match girl and slipped the jewel into the palm of her hand.
What a lovely bit of glass.
Cried the little girl, and she ran home, laughing. Then the swallow came back to the prince.
You are blind now,
He said,
so I will stay with you always.
No, little swallow,
said the poor prince.
you must go away to Egypt.
I will stay with you always.
Said the swallow, and he slept at the prince's feet. All the next day he sat on the prince's shoulder, and told him stories what he had seen in strange lands.
Dear little swallow,
Said the prince.
fly over my city, and tell me what you see there.
So the swallow flew over the great city, and saw the rich making merry in their beautiful houses, while the beggars were sitting at the gates. He flew into dark lanes, and saw the white faces of starving children looking out listlessly at the black streets. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen.
I am covered with fine gold.
Said the prince.
You must take it off, leaf by leaf, and give it to my poor. The living always think that gold can make them happy.
Leaf after leaf of the fine gold the swallow picked off, till the happy prince looked quite dull and gray. Leaf after leaf of the fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played games in the street.
We have bread now.
They cried. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder. He would not leave the prince, but at last, he knew that he was going to die. He had just the strength to fly up to the prince's shoulder once more.
Goodbye, dear Prince.
He then fell down dead at his feet. At that moment, something cracked and sounded inside the statue, as if something had broken. The fact is that the leaden heart had snapped right in two. It certainly was a dreadfully hard frost. Early the next morning, the mayor was walking in the square below, in company with the town councillors. As they passed the column, he looked up at the statue.
Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks.
He said,
And here is actually a dead bird at his feet.
continued the mayor.
The happy prince looks ugly now, pull him down.
So they pulled down the statue of the happy prince. Then they melted the statue in a furnace.
What a strange thing.
Said one of the workmen at the foundry.
This broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace. We must throw it away.
So they threw it on a dust heap, where the dead swallow was also lying.
Bring me the two most precious things in the city.
said God to one of his angels. And the angel brought him the leaden heart and the dead bird.
You have rightly chosen,
Said God,
for in my garden of paradise this little bird shall sing forevermore, and in my city of gold the happy prince shall praise me.